Hello, and welcome to How to Scale a Mission-Driven Brand. I'm Christine Lagorio-Chafkin. I'm a senior writer at Inc.com and Inc. Magazine, and I'm the author of We Are the Nerds, The Birth and Tumultuous Life of Reddit. I'm also host of the What I Know podcast, where I interview some of the world's most fascinating founders of companies about what they've learned on their journeys to success. And I have two fascinating founders here with me today. First, I'd like to introduce a founder who's been called the Norma Ray of sunscreen. It all got started when her friend in her 20s was diagnosed with skin cancer, and she set out to normalize SPF wearing daily. She didn't know at the time that she would launch an international multi-million dollar, venture to bring sunscreen into all of our handbags and into the pages of every glossy magazine. Holly Thaggard is the founder and executive chair of Supergoop. And I'm so glad to also be joined by one of Holly's investors and her friend, a woman who's well known for her skills on the tennis court, but is increasingly becoming a force in business as well. Tennis Grand Slam holder and Olympic medalist Maria Sharapova is also an entrepreneur herself, having founded the candy company Sugarpova while at the height of her tennis career. Maria, I'd like to welcome you here today, and I'd like for you to start us out. I'd love to hear the story of how you met Holly. This was years ago, correct?
It was. Our story goes way back. I remember when I first moved to Florida, I was a 6-year-old girl, and my mother had instilled this habit of wearing SPF every single day as I was training for 6 to 7 hours a day. And although it was this habit that I didn't quite enjoy because the formula was all gooey and it left my skin white, I knew that if it was important for my mother, it was important for me. Years down the line, as I worked on my beauty routine and I tried new products and I got a little older and smarter and I knew what was better for my skin, I found Supergoop on the shelves of Sephora. I used the product for a couple of years and then I got to know Holly. And when I met Holly, her mission of creating an SPF that would prevent skin cancer was the sole reason why I wanted to invest in this brand. It was an incredible mission. It was a tough mission because it wasn't a popular or a cool category at the time. And she was on that mission of changing the category and making it sexy, which was so much fun to be a part of in the last 7 years.
That's wonderful. Let's turn to Holly and back up a bit. We're here to talk about scaling a mission-driven brand. So let's talk about the birth of the mission first. It came before the business, is that right?
Yes, Christine. So my friend was diagnosed with skin cancer, and we were in our late 20s. I learned that skin cancer is primarily preventable. It's one of those few cancers that's primarily preventable with a magic lotion, SPF. And when I looked at the category, my parents are entrepreneurs, and I looked at both chemical sunscreens and mineral sunscreens, and it was just incredibly sleepy. There was no innovation at all. And I learned from my college friend who was going through a residency in dermatology. It's really, she said to me, Holly, it's not about the beach. That's not how this happened. It's that little bit of cumulative exposure every single day that causes skin cancer. And for your friend, it happened at a very young age. So again, my parents were entrepreneurs. They taught us from a very early age to look for the white space. We often said around the dinner table, if it's already been done, why bother? And I thought, gosh, if we're going to get SPF into everyone's skincare routine every single day, it's only going to happen through product innovation. We have to give and deliver beautiful, luxurious formulas that feel amazing on the skin, so that you actually want to apply every single day. And I think, still today, product innovation is at the core of what this brand is all about. Of course, you can't do it without passion, but I think product, I dream about SPF, I always say. So coming up with new game-changing ways to get SPF into everyone's routine is what really wakes me up in the morning.
Right. I mean, I remember when I was a little kid, sunscreen was just this thing that popped up in spring and summer on the end of an aisle in, a grocery store or a general store, something like Target. And it wasn't something that people thought about in the middle of winter. So how do you go about just completely upending a category? You weren't just cracking into an existing line of business. You were sort of creating a whole new category.
Yeah, that's a great question, because at the time, as you mentioned, back in 2000 and gosh, two, three, it was only thought of as a seasonal product that was on a huge end cap, distorted in the summer months, and then pulled back at fall. And I think, what really helped me stay knowing early that I wanted to deseasonalize this category and make sure that it looked as beautiful on the shelf at Christmas as in the dead of as on the 4th of July. I think I had to find the right retail partners that could support that vision, and this was well before social media, and this was at a time when direct to consumer was not even launched really yet. And so in finding partnerships with wholesale and retail accounts, I really looked for those that could help storytell and that could also be aligned with my vision and give me the opportunity to create product innovation that would be as productive on the shelf 12 months a year. And it started very small. And in fact, it's how I knew Sephora was the right partner for me, because they originally proposed a plan for the 12 weeks of summer on a big end cap, which was, of course, like nails on a chalkboard for me. But I had to sit down and talk with them and say, we're trying to deseasonalize this category. SPF should be worn every single day. So let's talk about what size of the shelf you can give me and guarantee distribution for 12 months. And that really ultimately allowed me to go back and do what I do best, and that's create products that you don't necessarily think of to put in your drawer in October.
Mm-hmm. So you had to actually kind of take a little hit there and say, I'll scale back the amount of space I'll have if you'll leave it up for longer, if you'll give me 12 months, which seems like an interesting bet to make, and I think could be applicable to other businesses, who are saying we want to scale, but we need to hit those right targets. We need to stay true to our mission first.
That's what's so great about having a mission, because you can make decisions along the way that don't, you're not making decisions for money, or you're not making decisions for the wrong reasons. If everything truly ladders up to your mission, I knew that real meaningful change doesn't happen overnight. It's forget the 10-year business model and think of it as a 10-year journey that you're going to evolve. I think it's really important for younger entrepreneurs to realize that those decisions you make early on really shape your future. And those 6 inches that Sephora gave me soon turned into 12 inches to one shelf. One shelf turned to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. We're sitting with full gondolas today in the front of store for, I think 9 months out of the year. And so, it did happen slowly. But real meaningful change does happen slowly. And so you have to invest in the time. And then I think also coinciding with that, you have to look at what I had to look at was a world where social media did not exist. And everything was in the hands of the beauty editors. And I had to chip away at getting those articles mentioned outside of May and June, because back in 2002, SPF was only mentioned in the month of May. And so, slowly working that angle too, and getting it to where today, fast forward, and I can't keep up with my press 365 days a year. And I think that the world is starting to see that SPF and sun care is truly only skincare if it's protecting from the one environmental aggressor that wreaks havoc on our skin.
Yeah, absolutely. And Maria, I know that, of course, you're an advisor and an investor in Supergoop, but you do a lot of work in other health and wellness companies as well, and that's been a big focus of yours. I'm curious. It seems like in the health and wellness space, there's almost this inherent tie to a mission, right? There's this inherent. It's kind of built into almost any business in that space. Is that part of the attraction for you?
Yeah, I think I'm inspired by people that want to create healthy changes. And that's why the health and wellness space has become a topic of conversation in the last few years, because people are realizing that these small little habits that we begin to do every single day ultimately make a big difference. So whether it's a Therabody, whether it's Bala Bangles, whether it's Supergoop, whether it's drinking your water every single day, it's those small little things that you go back to your childhood. How do you take care of your body? How do you take care of your skin? And I think it's also about reinventing categories. We say it's always challenging to change like your favorite milk that you put in your coffee, right? And I think that's the challenge that Holly faced in the beginning was, yes, the product was seasonal. People thought of it as something that you put on your body when you're going out and tanning. So how do you change the perspective of a category that's somewhat known, that isn't as appealing, and making it cool and significant again?
Yeah, and I'm curious what your role has been in advising Supergoop in particular. Is there any advice that you've given to Holly along the way, or any times that she's come to you and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" And you think you've had a real impact?
To be frank, I learn just as much from Holly as I give her advice. I think that's the beauty of collaboration, of working together, of not just investing dollars, but of investing time and knowledge and education. That's when the best relationship forms. When I heard Holly's mission and I knew that she started with a beauty product that began with SPF and not a foundation that included SPF, that was the mission that she was on, and I wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And that this is all not out of left field. You know, you founded your own company several years ago while you were in the midst of your tennis career. I can't imagine the amount of work that must have taken. But you know, you're very involved in Sugarpova and the companies now that you've invested in. And I think you know the last time we spoke, one of my favorite moments was when we were talking about that you're particularly interested in design, and we realized that we both had a deep obsession with beautiful fonts. So I'd love for you to talk about why you like to be hands-on with the companies that you work with and you invest in.
I'm very curious in nature, and I think that's what draws me to meeting people and understanding their business, even though it might be a business that I'm not entirely familiar with or I don't know all the ins and outs. And learning from Holly, learning about the direct to consumer business, and I've seen that shift. I remember when you just asked me about what was it that I helped with in the beginning. I remember those early meetings with in Sephora, and we're educating the retail partners on what this product is. Like I was there deep into these conversations, and what I'm doing now is certainly different at the stage of where the company is. That's what keeps me exciting. Is this growth pattern? It's a learning pattern. What you needed years ago isn't necessarily what you need today, but you gather all the knowledge. When it's about design, I was always curious about design through my travels. I would find all the different Frank Gehry buildings around the world, and I thought of them as little souvenirs that I would capture and to take photographs and send little postcards to my mom back home. So I've taken those aesthetics and I've brought them into my home. I've also brought them into interior design collaboration I have coming up in the next couple of months. So yeah, I guess all those little bits and pieces, they tie into my travels and having something like these other hobbies to do while I was very passionate about the one sport that I played for 28 years of my life.
Absolutely, I love that. There's all sorts of different experiences that make a life and might inform you later in your career. Um,
Well, and
Holly, you know,
Christine, sorry, I was going to say, Maria brings so much, and I think that, really helping us amplify this message, when you are inspired to change the way the world thinks about sunscreen, you can't be shy to ask for help. And I think that, Maria had a voice that really helped us at a time, and yes, her roles and responsibilities and the things that we collaborate on today have changed over the years. But I think being nimble and being flexible and creative, those are all good things.
yeah, Holly, one other thing that just has always impressed me about talking with you is, I speak to entrepreneurs for a living, and most of them seem to kind of grit their teeth when they're talking about their investors, or they live in a little bit of fear of them at times. They know that when you accept a certain amount of outside money, you lose that part of control of your company. And you've always spoken lovingly about your investors. So can you talk a little bit about how to make those relationships work for you and how to find the right partners that are actually going to help your business grow and scale the way it should?
Sure. And, I think when Maria even joined the Supergoop family, we weren't necessarily even looking for an investor. We were just looking for help every which way I could. Everyone that was willing and able to, and excited to come along and help us build was what was most exciting. And you're right, we have gone through several capital raises, and I have always thought about my investor partners as being part of my family and taken the time to meet with hundreds and hundreds of interested folks, and really be very selective about who I was bringing into my family. It's a little bit also like I think about retail partners, because I get that question a lot too, and founders not knowing what the right retail mix is for their portfolio. And I think, you have to think about having that dinner at your home, and who could you put at the same dining room table and then exit into the kitchen and not be scared one bit about what everyone was saying. And that's how I've always chosen our retail partners. And the same is true with our investors. Who do I want to be having to my house with my 2 children and spending time with, and who's thinking about our business in a similar way that we are? And I get that question quite a bit from founders that are very nervous about taking on investors. So I would just have to say the most important step there is to take the time. And then I think to nurture the relationships before you actually need the money. So our brand Supergoop looked, I think, a lot bigger because of our presence at Sephora than it really was in revenue. So I started getting those FedEx letters from investors at a very early stage, like maybe pre $1 million. And every one of those letters that I got that said, we're interested in learning more about your business, I dropped everything and flew out, sat down at the table, and told our story. And I did it at that point primarily because I thought if I'm going to be in a room full of smart people and telling them my story, I'll at least walk away with several new families of Supergoop fans. So take those meetings early, because what that enabled me to do over time was get to know them. I often were given business cards that would say, if you need anything, if you have any questions along the way, call me. Because I often started those meetings out with saying, we're way too small, but I'm excited to meet you. And I took them up on every one of those offers. And even our private equity today was one of those first letters that I received. And I had the opportunity for many years to get to know them and understand how they approached things before ever taking an investment from them.
Right. I love that idea that, you should be able to sit at your dining room table with the people you're going to work most closely with. Maria, what's your philosophy on how to find companies to invest in, or people that you actually want to work with?
I always think of people that you will be comfortable sharing your vulnerabilities and sharing setbacks with, because I always say, and it was very relative to my sport, that it's very easy to succeed with any team, with team members, but it's very challenging. And I think true character comes out in people is when you face diversities, when you face imperfections, when you face losses, when your great expectations or goals they don't come to fruition when you expected them to, and so you have to take a step back and you have to listen to these team members, and you have to believe in them and their journey and their drive, because ultimately they are what you wake up for, right? When I played tennis, I had a coach and a fitness trainer, and so much of my victories and my losses also depended on their work. And so I know when they were sitting watching, all of their work was coming into life, and I wanted them to succeed with me, and I wanted them to inspire me when I was down. So I'd say that is very important as you look for business partners as well.
Absolutely. Holly, to turn this just back, the last year has been a challenge for so many businesses. It's been just incredibly hard. But you expanded internationally this last year, and I'm so curious how you managed in the midst of a global pandemic, in the midst of travel restrictions and this global supply chain crunch. How did you do that? You're in China and Canada now, is that right?
We did. We launched cross-border China. We launched Canada and the UK market during March of the pandemic. And yes, we had to throw our playbook out and cancel a whole lot of parties. But we figured out how to do it differently. And I think that's the beauty of when you love to create and you love to build, you figure out ways in which to connect with the people and keep those launches on schedule. Fortunately, SPF is an over-the-counter drug, so it's regulated by the government, and it was a necessity. So our contract manufacturing didn't stop one bit. But we launched, and I found that I was able to be on Zoom in Hong Kong one day, and Canada the next, and London the next. So I was able to actually reach more people and have more very heartfelt, genuine conversations over Zoom than I would have ever been able to had I kept those flights to all of those countries. And I think, again, it goes back to the mission. If you want to change the way the world thinks about sunscreen, you can't stay in your own little backyard.
Right. I'm curious from both of you how, I mean, entrepreneurs are generally a high energy folk, and both of you are used to traveling a lot around the globe. How have you handled this year? And do you have any tips for other folks going forward into 2021, how to just, keep energized, keep business growing, while, hunker down at home as it is for so many, or just starting to resume, more of those activities we were used to in the past.
Yeah, I would say it's, routine was a big part of my life, and I feel like this last year, it's all been about routine and maintaining them. And there's a part of me that wants to be a little bit more spontaneous. And I think although we're closer to the finish line than where we were, we're still figuring out how to create those little moments of joy. I spent so many years on the road. I was on the road for 10 months out of the year. So for me, being spontaneous, it has been spending time with my family and cooking, and realizing that those I was missing those small moments, those holidays at home. Like I spent Christmas every year thinking of what I was going to pack to my trip to Australia, flying out on Christmas Eve or the day after Christmas. And this year, although it was our small family of four, I loved every second of it. So I'm finding like little sparks of joy. And I think taking care of your body is also fundamental. I need to start my day having a positive outlook of my body, of the way that I feel. I always say that a strong body leads to a strong mind. So even if it's 30 minutes of movement, if it's 45, if you give yourself an hour, if you're able to go outdoors, do it, because I think it's just as healthy for your mind as it is for your body.
What about you, Holly? Any tips for making it work?
Yeah, I did travel a lot, not to the level that Maria has traveled over the years, but I was often in New York weekly and out of the country. And I think, this year, it was funny, I was looking back at my journal from last year, and in January, I said one of my resolutions was to have more family dinners. So I definitely got what I asked for. But my children are 13 and 16, and they're only going to be in our home for a few more years. So this was a year that we really were able to do our work from anywhere and do it and come together for lunch and for dinner, and that was really special for us. And I think getting outside and having that time is so important. It's actually helped me be more in a routine, because I had trouble keeping up with flights and travel and family dinners and commitments and working out. And I've been able to be in the gym at 7 a.m. every single morning with my trainer and switch between my weights and Pilates and just make that a priority, because I really only have to be on Zoom come 8:30 for our Rise, Shine, and SPF call. So I think there's a lot of really great things that came out of that.
Great. Well, let's talk grit and perseverance, because you, Holly, we've heard the story of cracking into this new, or not cracking into, but creating a new category, and the years it took to get your product on store shelves, the expansion that's still going on internationally. And Maria, obviously, you've shown tremendous perseverance through your career on the tennis court and now in investing. Let's hear your advice, just quickly, each of you, for when you're starting a company and you want to build a mission into your brand. How do you do that? And I know it's just a really difficult thing to do. How do you kind of persevere through the challenges?
Yeah, I
I think
truly believe that. Sorry, Holly. I truly believe that hard work pays off, and we always think of, when we put in certain investments, whether it's time or money or capital, we always want to see a return on that investment very fast. And as Holly mentioned previously, it is so important to be patient, because every diligent move that you make, every smart move that you make, it might not pay off tomorrow. Every dollar spent, you have to take a lot of chances in order to see reward. You have to invest in people of your time and energy in order to see that. But be patient with your hard work, be diligent, do your homework, say please and thank you, no matter, if you're just starting a company or you're a CEO or president, those little things, they go a really long way.
I totally agree. You know, game-changing businesses are not built overnight. You have to be willing to put in the time, which is, I think, why it's so important that you be so passionate about your idea that you literally cannot sleep at night, because it's only that passion that's going to drive you to continue putting in the time that's necessary to create real, meaningful change in this world.
Wonderful. Well, I hope that everyone today has learned something about how to build a mission into your business, the challenges that come with it, and the rewards that can come from it. Thank you so much for joining us today, Holly Thaggard and Maria Sharapova.